Okay, so now let's finish out. Hopefully we can do it in one, but we'll see, especially since we have to do the 11 version. But we're going to finish out this guy here, our center bits. Obviously that's a big, attention grabber. So it's worth the time and effort to make it look good, right? Because there it is. It's, definitely part of the production there. So anyhow, let's see what we got. So altogether, so far, we haven't done much. We've done our 7 sort of complementary or contrasting, I should say, colors that we want there. And then we've done 12 at about 1/2 inch, so about 12 beads. So basically, now after this, we're going to do 20 and then 20 and then 12 more. So there's a few. But here's the deal. So it goes up. This is basically 1/2 inch. And then it was going to go up to 5/8 of an inch. And then to 3/8 of an inch. To 3/4 of an inch. And then to 9/8 of an inch. Believe it or not. It's that weird. But basically what I'm doing is I'm upping it every 3 beads every segment. So that's kind of an easier way to do it. So once you figure out, like, if you're going to do a 12 bead for this first one of the 15s, remember we're in 15s, then each separate segment now we're going to up it by 3 beads. And that way you don't have to worry about the measurements too much. Just do it by bead count. So this next one we're going to do 15 beads, and we're going to do 20 of those. So it's going to be 20 15 bead fringes, and then 20 18 bead, and then 12 21 beads. So, and again, you're just going to be watching me do this over and over again. But here we go. I'm going to just, let's see what we got. It's hard, like, when you have to count, that's all I can think about is, like, I got to make sure I'm counting it right. So, I can't, chat about anything else. 6, now what am I doing again? 15 beads. Okay, so 6, and then 11, and then 15. So, and again, I'm starting to do this different method where I'm just, live and learn. We're learning together. Where I'm just doing it kind of close to the top in case there are any tight beads. Then I can just get rid of them easier. I'm going to pull it out. And also, then it's just one pull through. Right, and I always have to, every so often I chop off the end if necessary because I always hold it with my fingernail, which makes the end very kinked up. So now I'm pulling it through while kind of doing this thing with my hand, moving it that way so we can kind of work both hands together. And then getting it down so just it's right there at a 90-degree angle. So it gets a tight little edge there. Doing a little yank at 90-degree angles. And then bringing it back up and... we want them to be kind of wispy, so don't worry about them being straight. It's kind of good that they're like this. I realized after I made the first part of the last video, I was like, why did I do such a light color on top of a white background? But you know what? It's not that bad, I hope. So I was going to redo the first one, but then I kind of like it, so I'm going to use it. So we can see it there. So I'm going to do, what am I doing? What did I just say? 20 of those. So 20 15 beads. Now, one quick note I'm going to say as I... go for them. So like if you're doing 20, that's like a lot, right? And so you don't want to have to keep going back and going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many did I do? So I'm sure you already thought of something like this, but what I do is I'll just do a bunch. I'll keep going. And then like I'll count down and I'll be like, okay, I did 5, 10. And then at that time I had just done 12. So I'll bend that one down like that. And so now I know I just need 8 more past this one. Or you could, just do it at a halfway point. You could do it when you get to 10. In case you can't remember, sometimes I forget which one I'm setting it at. So now I know for sure that I need 8 more past this. So I don't have to keep counting. Like each, did I do 5, 10, 15, 20? So anyhow, I've got 6 more to do. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so now we've got the first 3 things going on, right? So we've got our little middle here. We got our 12 bead. So we have 12 bead, 12 of those, which are about 1/2 inch, and then about a 5/8, which is going to be about 15 beads, and we have 20 of those. I realized I could just show you the whole thing at the end, but then it really doesn't feel like we're doing it together at all. So you can see that we're getting a lot of fringe on this. We want a lot of fluff factor, right? It's all about that middle that kind of is what you don't want to skimp on it, basically. So now that was 15. So now I'm going up to 18, and I'm going to do another 20 of those. Then after that, I'm only doing 12. So it does get more, obviously, kind of tedious to, get these fringes going the more you have to jam it through. And every so often, I do cut off a tip the tip of it because trying to get to focus on that, because after pulling it through with my fingernail and jamming it through there, so get ready, cut it off if it gets too dull, or gets too like kinked up so you can't shove things through. So, let's see, this might be borderline on this too. So now I'm on the 18 group and I'm going to hope for the best with this. Again, if you get one that it gets too tight, and I'm checking to make sure, always checking to make sure that I didn't leave any down there. But if you do, that's no big deal. You can kind of pop it off or you can leave it there. But it does, if you leave it there, it is going to make it bulky around your stem wire. So you probably don't want to do that. So let's see. We got this one going. There we go. I love making the fringe. Fringe is fun. Except this wire is a little unwieldy. I'll be honest. But I think I'm going to keep using it because I like the way it looks with the cream. And it's stiff, and that's good because that means later on I'm going to be able to shape it well. So now I'm going to aim for 20 of these. And again, I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing, but let's do a little bit together just to, so it feels like we're actually working together. Let's see. Okay, so I'm getting 18 on there. In fact, I wouldn't even bother to measure so much. Just be consistent within your own beads. And that will be a good, if you just up each segment by 3 beads after the regular colored one, not the very center one. I need better reading glasses. So doing that, pulling this guy through, thinking about, normally I watch like an old movie or something when I'm doing my beading, like a really old movie, like 1930s and 40s. What do you all watch, or do you listen to music? Sometimes I listen to music, but for some reason I really like watching like old movies like TCM when I'm doing this. And in fact, when I first started, and I still do that, but I had to name them, right? And a lot of my pieces, for example, like, what am I going to say? It's the piece with the poppy and the lily and the chrysanthemum, so I had to, that's a little bit unwieldy. If it's just all like, an orchid, well, that's fine. So I had to, give them names, but I didn't really want to think of anything like, I don't know. For some reason, I didn't want to try to give them any fancy names about anything. Maybe it actually sounds like I was trying to be fancy. Actually, if I think about it. So I started naming them after like classic movie actresses. So like a lot of my arrangements have names like Merle Oberon or, Jean Tierney. And of course, there's the classics. I really held out. Recently I did name one Betty Davis, who's, no surprise, but, she would be someone's favorite, but she was one of my favorites. So I really held out on and Katharine Hepburn. I finally made a Katharine Hepburn, and I finally made a Betty Davis. One of them, and I can't remember. It was also I could remember the pieces easier, and then I don't. So irony. But now I feel like I can't ever not do that. So I kind of think of the person too. Like my Dorothy Dandridge was a Southern Magnolia, because she just seemed like she would have Southern Magnolias in her hair. Or just something like the Barbara Stanwyck was a little bit like tough around the edges kind of thing. Anyway, so I started naming them. I don't know why I was thinking about this. Oh yeah, because I'm watching old movies. One of my favorites, the Philadelphia Story, one of my favorite actresses is the second lead female role is Ruth Hussey. So I made one for her of poppies and buttercups, which is actually kind of sweet for her, to be honest. But it was a custom order by someone who really liked the Philadelphia Story also. So I figured it would be a cool name. I even named one after the little sister in that, Jeannie Weidler. And so I did a little cute sort of sweet arrangement for her. She's in a lot of other movies too, like The Women. She's the daughter in The Women. So anyhow, and Norma Shearer, speaking of The Women. So I did, so that's how they got named like that, which is kind of weird because there it is. And why are they named after actors? I don't know. Because again, in the beginning, I just wanted a way to think of them, but then there were so many now I don't actually remember what's what. Though I do remember like my initial trio was Merle Oberon and Jean Tierney and, oh my goodness, what am I forgetting? And Myrna Loy, duh. And Myrna Loy. So that was like my original first like arrangement trio. And they're all gone, I think. I think maybe one of them's left. I'm not sure. No, I'm not even sure. But they're all gone to the wind out in the world. So I'm sure the people who get them are probably wondering why they're named that. But, just 'cause. Again, I can't really have one that's like, Peony, mini lilies, almond blossoms. Let's, you know. And so what else are you going to name them? Got to give them a name. It has to put something, you know, on there. So anyhow, that's what I like watching. I wonder what you all like watching when you're doing it, or listening to, for that matter. So, I'm trying to think if there's anything. No, that's pretty much it. Just old movies. Philadelphia Story being one I can keep watching over and over again. And Mildred Pierce, right? Oh, and I did a Lauren Bacall's. That was a pretty good one. So, anyhow, back to the matter at hand. I also think it fits because I like those vintage colors, right? But anyhow, so I was doing a few of these just to see if there were any teaching moments that might pop up. But then I got too stuck into thinking about classic movie actresses, right? All About Eve. You could watch that one for ages, right? But, okay, let me get this one on here. See, I'm getting distracted now, thinking about All About Eve. So that's where the names came from for all the different ones. Okay, come on, little guy. This might be one that doesn't want to get on. Which, again, there seems to be a lot of tight ones in this batch. I'm going to pop this one off. I'm going to notice that I have 4 on here, so I'm just going to put 4 back on there. Pop those off. Get 4 more. I think it's this particular 28 is a very stiff 28, so it has a lot of kinks to it, which is also, when it gets kinked, making it hard to get through. You know, not all 28s are created equal, that is for sure. So, have your 1 bead down there, and push this on, and hope for the best. So I'm going to pause it in a second after I let go of this one, so I can go to the pause button. Let's see what we got. I think I got everybody on there. Okay, cool beans. Oh my gosh, it's getting stuck in there. I do not have the most flexible hands, as you can probably see. The weird thing is, if you've seen my videos before, I might have explained it. I have had arthritis since I was 2, so they've always looked this weird. I'm just growing into them now. I had students. I had a student once when I was teaching before, and I was probably just in my mid-30s, and you know, teenagers. She's like, "Miss, you're so young, but your hands are so old." It's like, yep, that's how they work. They've looked that old forever. Okay, so we're getting pretty fringy, but we're not even close yet. Well, we're closer, but we're not close yet. So I'm going to pause it so that you don't have to watch all this. Because you probably don't want to, right? Or do you? I don't know. If you do, that's a little weird. But I'll come back after the end of this segment. I'm checking in after the end of every one, just so that there is, you know, so you can see it develop, as it were. Our cute little, it's almost like I just want to make a nice little flower out of this guy, huh? I mean, you can do single thread spider mums. They're still a little longer than the ones that I did in the previous bead along, where you do when you do the loops and you squish them. The problem is you need a really stiff 28, because if you're doing them long, they get really floppy. So that's why when I'm doing single tendril, I'm trying to think if I have any around here. Oh, nope, that's not one. Single tendril chrysanthemums for the spider mums. I like to do the ones where you kind of do a little twist knot at the end, and then I can use a really stiff 24, and that way they hold their shape better. Because if you do the 28 and then wrap it back down like this, they can be a little bit floppy. But, again, if they're not going out into the world, that's a nice way to do a very thin tendril chrysanthemum. Anyhow, I'll come back after I finish this lovely segment. Off we go. Okay, so I actually came to the end of my wire before I actually finished out my 18 bead segments. So, of that, I've done 8 of those. So, I'm still in the middle of that, but I have about this much left. I don't want to get it any shorter than about 6 inches, because I do like to make sure I wrap that end. So now it doesn't matter, because this is what I'm saying. It doesn't matter where you are in your segment. I can just restart it. I'm going to grab some more wire and just start it up again. So if you end up getting close to 6, and 6 inches or so, then let it go. I'm going to give myself another like 5-ish feet or something. And then just go from there. And so I normally use a little knot with that, but I was a little aggressive with it. There we go. Okay, go over there. So if that happens, like I said, don't worry about it. That's perfect. You don't want to have a lot of wraparound. So if you can just do it in 2, you're good to go. I did a little knot in that. I don't want it to be that kinked. So I'm going to start it up again, and I'm going to finish out, do my last 12. And I actually don't need that much. I took off way too much yardage there, because I only need to do 12 more fringe columns, fringelets. I'm just making words up now. And then 12 more of the 21 beads. And then we're done with that. And I'm going to show you the 11 option also, and you can give that a try. That one, there's actually less to do because you just can't fit that much 11 in there. So this one is the 11 version without, obviously, petals. Okay, so I'm going to finish those out. Okay, yet another teaching moment, so that's cool. Because I'm definitely not one of those people that's going to try to make it look like, stuff doesn't happen, because stuff happens. So I was going about my day, doing my 18 bead ones, getting up to 12, and here are 6. And then all of a sudden, just due to the nature of the wire, I pulled it, maybe I kinked it too much or something. It snapped. And so now it's a really short piece. So I could make a decision right now and just restart and do a brand new 6 one. Or I'm going to patch this one in. I'm going to be honest, because that's what I'm going to do. Now that's going to create a little, so you can make that decision for yourself. If you don't want to go back and do those 6, you can just patch this one in and then start with the rest of the stuff and do another 6 on here and then do my other 12. So definitely something that happens. Remember, almost everything can be fixed. And if not, worst case scenario, you redo things, and there's worse things that could happen in the world. So, we can handle it. But, I'll be honest, I'm not really great at backtracking stuff. So I tend to want to go forward at all costs, to a fault often, unfortunately. So I'm just going to patch that one in for now and hope that it doesn't make the thing too bulky. Make the stem wire too bulky. And it won't, because, you can kind of get away with it in this one, because it's 28. And so remember, again, when you're doing your initial one, just really lock it in there, tighten this down so that way there's no slippage around. And so I'm just going to go forward from there. Now, again, you can decide if it makes it seem like it's going to get too bulky when you do your wrapping, then you might want to just call it a day. But I just wanted to show you why you're going to see 3 different segments. Oh, and this is where it's still busted through. I'm going to clean cut that because it's a sharp edge where it snapped. And sometimes there's just, little areas of weakness in the wire. It's not going to be consistent. You hope it is. And this isn't particularly cheap wire, but I think it's artistic wire. I'm not sure. Actually, I'm not actually sure what it is, but it's not like generic wire. So, these things happen. But anyhow, that's all I was going to say there. Just to remind you that you can fix it most often. Okay, I'll admit it. I lied. I decided to actually just do all 6. So, redo the 6 so I would have all 12. Because I don't want to have too much wire wrapping going on. I want to reduce the bulk. Also, by the way, if you're finding the 28 too annoying, you can go to a stiffer 32. 30, sorry, not 32. You can use a 30 with this. It's just I really like to shape it. So you can definitely use a 30. I'm going to actually put that in the notes of the video. Because depending on what your hole your 15 is, where it's at, you might be having issues. I'm having issues with this particular batch of beads in that they're, some of them just have pinchier holes. So anyway, we have, we've done our 12, our 15, and now this is our 18 group. So now, so I did 18 beads and there are 20 of them because remember there are 8 on the end of this guy of the 18s. And so now I have 12, which makes 20 altogether of the 18s. So all that's left now are 12 21 bead ones. So that's all we got to do. And then we're done with our center. So I'm going to cut out 21 beads. So 5, 10, a 15. I'm actually pretty fast on this one. It's a 11s, but dang, these little things are teensy weensy. Now, so I'm going to do 12 of these guys, and then we're done with our center bits. And until we do assembly, which, by the way, will be next, actually, because I like to assemble this before I do the bottom bits. So we can actually assemble the flower, because I custom do the bottoms kind of differently for each one, so it looks different. It's not a normal, like, calyx situation. It's more like an unfolding... Uh-oh. Are we having one here? Are we having a moment? Me and this one? After I said all that? Come on now. Sometimes it'll just go on, but it'll be really tight. But I'm spending far too much time doing this, so I should have moved to a 30 at this stage, honestly. I'm just so committed to that. And then I do this instead of popping them off, which is a problem too. Be gentle with this method. Do not, because it can really bust your wire. And it probably contributed to why that last one snapped. I had probably a weak spot. Why don't I just take them off? Because, you know, I know those already went on, so this works. Okay, so I'm trying to do 2 things at once, talking and doing. You'd think I could do that, right? Wouldn't you? So we're doing 21 now. Remember, we're just kind of going up by 3 beads each, and we're just going to do 12 of these. That's just to have sort of an outer fringe that's slightly longer than the bulk of it, right? It's just to sort of accent the edge. Now, again, I'm going to bend down to keep track, too, so I don't have to really look. The last one of the 18, so I can count easier and get my 12 and just see it easier where it happens. Where I'm doing now my 21s. Now, as you get, of course, longer, the more you're doing, the more likely you are to have problem beads, and also the harder it is to kind of keep everything flowing when you're doing the, like, sort of bend back through thing. So it's kind of like sewing a little bit. I did recently start trying to learn how to sew sort of like it's called a brick stitch. So making these earrings. Very interesting. Very different sort of thought process involved there. Anyhow. Okay, so there we go. I got 2 showing up there. Gosh, I hope I'm not... I'm trying to stay in the frame. Now, I want to get this one done, though, so that I can end it, and then I can just do the 11s. So I'm going to pause this so we don't run out of time on it, and when I come back, I should have all of my 21s done. Now, remember, we're just doing 12 stalks. And I want to be real clear, though. If you go a little bit more, a little bit less in the number of stalks you do, it's not, or the number of beads or anything, it's not the end of the world. You know, the wrapping is already going to make it kind of just different. It's not going to be, you know, clean and everything's perfect. We want it to be kind of fluffy and different looking. So that's okay if you do a little bit more, even if you do a little less stalks. Now, you don't want to do too many less, because obviously then that will start to affect the fluff factor. But 1 or 2 less stalks, it's not the end of the world. You know, it's about the same. So let me get that out of the way. So the main thing is we just want enough so that when we wrap it around that stem wire, we really get a lot of just impressive looking fluffiness that is going to be, you know, kind of eye-catching for people who are looking at it, right? Okay, so I'm going to pause this and finish her up. This video is like full of teaching moments. So I was trying to pull too hard, and I actually wanted to use the pliers to pull it through the last one to make it tight, and I snapped the entire end wire off. I really don't want to make that whole thing again. So what am I going to do? That's a good question. So what I'm going to do is I'm still going to use this. And by the way, at this point, I've never had this many issues with doing a fringe with a 28 before, but there's something up with this wire and this bead combo where they just do not like each other. So do not let it go like as badly as I let it go, just out of sheer stubbornness. Just switch down to a 30. And that's fine. I should have done that ages ago. So now what I'm probably going to do is when I twist it, so now you can see that there's an end bit to it. Now, the good news about that kind of thing is that's going to be in the center, so it's going to be held up by the petals, right? So what I'm going to do is probably weave around and like kind of just use another thing to kind of weave Now, if this were all the same size, it would be really easy. I would just start with this and then end with this. But this is actually the larger size, so I'm going to have to end with this one. So how am I going to get it to attach? Well, that'll be interesting to figure out. I might have to redo it, but I'm hoping not. I've done this before where I've kind of woven in some wire in and then like kind of patch it through. Now, again, you could just redo it. But to be honest, I'm over making fringe right now. I just am. I'm ready to roll. And I know I can make it work. So, again, teaching moment, stuff happens. And you know what I mean. So, okay. So now, that is the end of our trials and tribulations with this lovely thing. And now, again, you can use 30 gauge. In fact, I'm going to suggest that when I put it in the notes for this. But now I have 2 segments with everything I need. And so I'm only going to have 2 wraparounds, and that's okay now. That's good. And I'm going to figure out a way to sort of weave this, and maybe we'll troubleshoot together. Hopefully not because you need to troubleshoot, but because you can then watch, the weirdness that I might get up to. You can kind of see that it actually is causing a little issue here. So I twisted this already with the second one, and I'm really going to have to just do some weirdness. And again, why not redo it? Well, because I don't want to right now. I guess that's why. And that should be darn good enough. And also because we're going to see how we can fix it, because stuff does happen, right? And I was just being too darn stubborn. So I'm going to stop this one, and this is all we need for the center. Now, we're going to actually do preliminary assembly, because the bottoms of these, I want to assemble them before we make the bottoms, because the bottoms I use sort of like flop down leaves. And so, because that's what I see, and there can be a variety of different ways they happen, and sometimes they'll actually be curved up if you want to go that direction. And then you would just spin them around and not have the seam here. But so we're going to do kind of different sort of randomly sized. So I'm going to put my peony together and then sort of build onto it and do these second. So I like to do a little pre-assembly where I just do the flower itself and not worry about the bottom yet. So we're going to do the center and assemble them with the petals. And then we'll move on to the bottoms and then do some leaves, some buds, and we got some work to do. But anyway, that's the end of this one. Off we go. So by the way, that's the end of those centers. And I'm just going to do a quick one to show you how you can do them with 11s too, if you want to. So over and out for now.